Alrighty. Okay, my name is Greg Bell. I'm from Vancouver, Canada. And there was a couple woos. Perfect. I run a company called Reverb Software up there. And I started an open source project called ActiveAdmin about 2 years ago. Launched it out into the world actually about a year ago. Thank you. Some people use it. And I got to go through the joys and pains of running an open source project for a year that people actually used. And so I've got 7 tips what to do if you're running an open source project. Don't use the merge pull request button on GitHub. Travis CI is awesome. Use it. Don't forget that design and user experience, if your project has a front end, get designers involved. Depend on less dependencies. Write half as many features and twice as much documentation. Build a community and do it. Just do it.
Okay, I'm going to talk about integration testing engines today. With the engines talk that was held, I'm not sure if it was yesterday or the day before, they all kind of blur into one. I really disagree with what was taught. I think that you shouldn't be drawing Rails application, you shouldn't be drawing your routes on the Rails application. I think that is utter bullshit. My tweet during that talk was, no, do not draw routes in the application. Fuck, I want to jump on stage. That's how much I disagree with it. So you should be drawing routes on the engine itself. Doesn't matter if you are doing, like if you are just having an internal engine, you should always be drawing it on an engine instead of on the application. So I really, I'd just like to emphasize that I strongly disagree with that talk. This then, by drawing the routes on the engine, you can mount your engine using mount your engine at a specific path in your config routes file. Or if you don't want to mount it at any particular path, just mount it at root and it will act as if you drew it on the Rails application itself. When this happens though, some people complain that, oh my god, my routes are broken. No, they're not broken. They're actually just elsewhere. This is because in your engine, you should be calling isolate namespace, and I think isolate namespace was mentioned about 20 minutes too late in that talk yesterday. Isolate namespace will isolate the engine's namespace, so your models, your migrations, your controllers are all automatically namespace, and that is the right way of doing it as well. This means that you can have routes inside your engine like resources people, and you can have routes inside your application called resources people, and even though they're the same routes, they're actually quite different. So inside your engine, you can call, or inside your application or your engine, you can call the engine name .peoplePath, and that will go to the people path inside the engine. Or you can call main app people path to always go to the people path inside the application. When we were working on Spree, we had this problem. We had an RSpec test for the products controller, and we defined a simple test in it that went to the index action. And can anyone tell me what this does? It goes to a gray screen. It says no route matches controller Spree products controller action index. And this is lies, damned lies. Because the Spree products controller actually existed. The problem was that we weren't using useRoute, and you need to use the useRoute option in controller test to tell it to go to the engine's routes. Inside of integration test, which is I'm sure why I'm talking about this, we had the same problem. When we call visit products path, it should go to the products path inside the Spree engine. This is actually inside Spree's test itself, visit products path. And that also broke. It said undefined method products path. The way we fix this, oh, there's lies, damn lies again. The way we fix this in Spree is we provide a URL helpers module called, oh, it's called URL helpers, duh. And it contains a method called Spree. And that just simply returns the URL helpers for the Spree engine. And then inside your integration test, you can use visit Spree products path. You can use it inside of Spree's integration test, and you can also use it inside the application's integration test as well. There's a great getting started with engines guide that I wrote, and I wrote a chapter in Rails 3 in Action about engines. I would highly, highly, highly encourage any of you to read both of these things before doing any engines work whatsoever. Thank you.
So I basically just want to quickly talk about why I have decided to do Tokaido, which is previously called Rails.app. The basic idea behind this project is, hey, I'm a 5-minute. I don't think I could do this in 1 minute. So the idea is to have a precompiled version of Ruby that is going to be updated, at least in terms of patch releases for a particular version. No hard-coded pass in the binary, so if you just compile Ruby The way you would normally compile it, you end up with paths that are hard-coded to your local file system. Don't do that. We want to have precompiled binary gems, so if you have Nokogiri, you're not installing Nokogiri and having to find libxml on your local machine and hope it's there and hope it's the right version and hope it's the version Aaron likes. I have the next one in bold, terminal-based workflow. This is not an attempt to have a GUI that replaces Rails. It's an attempt to make it so that the number of failure scenarios that people have when they install Rails in the first place goes down to as close to 0 as we could possibly make it. There's also just a bunch of extras that I want to do, like automatically run bundle outdated for you and give you notifications, run things like flog and flay and basically tell you, like, here are some areas of your code that are hotspots for problems, things like Rails best practices, some kind of DNS solution so that you can have like myapp.dev, Ruby Toolbox integration, so you're like, I want an authentication solution, working with the Ruby Toolbox guy to get an API for that would be awesome, and then a Rails protocol handler so that you can click on something on rubygems.org and have it install. So general goal, precompile everything, and by precompile everything I mean statically compile. I don't, Aaron alluded to this, I don't have time to talk about what that exactly means, but we should not be having dependencies on shared extensions on OS X because it just opens the door for too much craziness, and it turns out to be somewhat complicated to do that. In terms of failure scenarios, if you do 5 steps and each one of them has 95% chance of success, your total chance of success is 77%. If you have 10 steps, it's 59%. You get my point. Even though it seems like everything works reliably, it's easy for something to fail. I don't want compilation failures to be a thing that we have to worry about in general. So it's not, hey, we should really learn how to compile things. It's like, why is a C compiler an important part of the Ruby workflow on OS X? I want to avoid, in general, unrecoverable system-wide failures. So if in step 3 your system gets screwed up, you may not be able to recover from that, and you may not know what exactly went wrong. The core of it is going to be usable on other platforms like Linux using the SM framework, which Wayne Seguin wrote, working with Michael Pappas on that. And the final goal is I want this to be an environment that I am using on a regular basis myself. I don't want it to be an easy bake oven, so that's that. This is sort of my guiding principle. Automating failure-prone workflows doesn't eliminate the failure, but it makes them harder to recover from. So we could definitely make here are the 5 steps and run them, and then if some of them fail, you're basically boned. This is something that happened to us when we were doing the Ruby help desk. Someone came in, they were doing gem install SQLite 3, it didn't work. Turned out somehow userlib SQLite3.h was not in their system. Obviously that should not happen. We were never able to figure out exactly what went wrong, but situations like this should not be part of the workflow at all. This failure should not break your ability to start things. I want to say a lot of people are like, they take the easy bake analogy to mean like, oh, I want to have a C compiler, I'm a real grown-up programmer. Pretty much every other platform other than OS X uses pre-built binaries, I guess except for Gentoo. There's no reason why OS X users have to not use pre-built binaries, and I think somewhat more importantly, I don't really see OS X users, the average OS X user learning Rails, to be significantly different than a Windows user. And for some reason, even though it's probably easier to get a C compiler on Windows, nobody's telling people who are trying to install Rails on Windows, like step 1, download DevKit. Right? Everyone knows that you have to actually have binaries, and I just fundamentally, a guy who goes into an Apple store and buys a Mac and comes home and says, hey, I want to learn Rails, is not somebody who is fundamentally different from a Windows user. Also, I just want to say, like, the goal of this is actually to have something that everybody can use. I want to use it. I want to basically build a binary distribution that is useful for me. But it should also be helpful for noobs as well. So this is sort of along the same lines as what DHH said first day, which is I think it's good to have a solution that is shared by everybody, that's both advanced users and noobs are able to use together. Obviously, there may be some people who are like doing some crazy stuff with many versions of Ruby or something like that. But for most people, this should be a reliable solution like in every other platform. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm going to try. Can everyone hear me now? No. No? Like this. Okay, I'm going to try to scream. Can everyone hear me now? Oh man, this is going to be great. Hi, I'm Ryan. I help organize the Toronto Ruby Brigade. We do hack nights, and I help with a couple other events. And I wanted to talk about why it's a great thing to help organize or be an active participant in your local user group. So out of people here, how many people go to a local user group event monthly or more often? So a pretty good number. How many people actively organize or participate or do talks or something like that? That number, I think, should be a lot higher, and I'll tell you why. Number 1, by going to the local user group, by participating in the local user group, you get to know way more people in your community. being able to go to a pub night or a drink night and just be able to like catch up with like really smart, interesting people is great. By the way, can everyone still hear me or no? Okay, I'm gonna try my best to do this. Number two, recruitment is way easier. Whether you're someone who actually is responsible for recruitment or just a developer at a company. Like your company, most companies are looking for great developers. A way to get your company's name out there. So yeah, recruitment is way easier. It gets your company's name out there, especially if you're a small company. It's a fantastic way to put yourself on the map, to let people know that your company is there, and more importantly, that your company cares about the local community and wants to make the local community better. This one was a theoretical thing until about 2.5 minutes ago, and I could say this is absolutely true. It is a lot easier to do a talk to 30 people at your local user group or hold a hack night or something like that. So, I mean, if you want to get a bit of experience, if you want to dip your toe into trying this out, your local user group is a great way to do that. Not everyone can make it to the big conferences. So, we're all very lucky. We can all come down to RailsConf, with our flights and our hotels and our tickets. Not everyone can do that. So one great thing that I think, a lot of people could do is go to your local user group, do a talk about what you learned at RailsConf. Your content is already going to be there for you, so it's fairly easy to do. Organizing an event is less hard than you think it is. When I started doing hack nights in Toronto, I had been working with Ruby only for about 6 months. So I was a beginner. I was by no means an expert. And it worked fine. We got a really good group of people out. Some beginners, some experts, a nice mix. And I thought it worked fantastic. And the organization effort, I mean, if you're doing a big talk night, it can be a lot of effort. For something like a hack night, it really doesn't take a lot. So it's worth experimenting. It's worth trying. Another reason our strong dev communities are amazing. Having a community around your city of great developers who know each other and can get in touch with each other, it's fantastic. And it doesn't really take a lot. If you don't have a dev community or a user group inside your town, absolutely start one, even if it's only a few people, because it will start building those networks. And it really isn't a lot of effort to get those network effects happening. Spreading the Rails love, getting people more exposed to Ruby and Rails. At our hack nights, we have about 25% of the people have either never used Ruby or Rails or just started learning it within the last month. So, I mean, that's pretty incredible. We have 5 to 10 people every month who are learning about Ruby and Rails. And I think that's fantastic, that we're kind of like spreading the word, spreading the love about Rails. So, some things that you can do to start organizing a dev event in your community. Do a talk night. Talk at a talk night if you have one, or just start one. Pub nights are great. Just get together and drink. That's like the easiest thing you can do. Run a hack night. It doesn't need to be a lot. It can just be like, hey, I'm going to make my office available for 3 hours. Why doesn't everyone come and hack and show off what they did? And teaching Ruby. So there's a lot of people doing great stuff with this. Consider doing like a kids code camp. Find a way to teach Ruby to non-hackers, like people in marketing or journalism or something kind of connected to Ruby. To university students, I don't think Ruby gets enough exposure. Or really anything else you can think of. Look at other cities, see what they're doing, and emulate what you think is cool. Thanks very much.
So my name is Mike Scalnik. I'm actually one of the main organizers of the Atlanta Ruby users group, and I agree with everything he just said. All right, so Yehuda just talked about Tokaido and its end goals. When that was posted on Kickstarter, Jeremy McAnally said, I don't agree with all these goals. I don't want a Rails.app that I'm going to use because that's not something I can put on my server. Really, what we need is something that's going to help wean people into the current tool set. So he started working on Railcar and has similar goals. Isolated environment, installs binaries. There's a nice GUI, so it helps you set up Rails from the beginning. There is a command line interface as well, and it's based on real tools like RBN and all that stuff. And it makes it easy to transition into the workflow that we kind of have now. So you move from the top of the chart to the bottom. When you begin, you're kind of clueless. You want a one-click install. And as you become more familiar, you get a full GUI that allows you to install any database system. Then you can start using the command line, and then eventually you don't even need Railcar at all. So how is it made? It's written in MacRuby, and yeah. So Ruby binaries are packaged up using some rake tasks, using rake compiler, similarly doing static compilation. Some next steps that we want to take this to the next level are fix some issues. There's some issues up on GitHub, and if anyone finds any, feel free to wire them on there or add them too. Wire up some of the missing pieces. It's not all fully functional just yet, but it is on GitHub. Figure out some Ruby building issues that are currently present. Finish up the command line interface, and set up bin gems, which is going to be a way to install binary versions of gems. And we want to also publish the rake task once they're not so embarrassing. Right now, they're not so clean, but once they're clean, Jeremy's going to push them up to GitHub. So if you're interested in getting involved, you can check out GitHub. It's already up there. There's some issues. There's some to-do notes that need to be sniffed out and probably turned into issues. We need some more documentation as well. So that's Railcar. Railcar.info if you're interested in more information. Thanks.
All right. So my talk is entitled Why You Don't Get Hired. Who am I? My name is Felix Dominguez. I'm at @thecat on Twitter. I'm a developer for Rapid Reporting Division of Toxic Division of Equifax. We've been consumed and consumed again. Nothing I say represents the companies I work for. So how did this whole talk start? We were sitting at the bar. Someone asked, I submitted a resume and I never got a call back. And I said, well, have you talked to anybody about it? He said, no. I said, well, we got a bunch of people in the exhibitor area. We got recruiters and we got VPs of engineering. I said, go talk to them about it. Nah, I don't really feel like it. So I did the work for him. So I talked to all these people. I spent a total of 7 hours going through each one of these guys, went to the meet and greet, and a common thread started appearing. And as I shake my nerves off, guys, give me a second. And once again, I in no way present these companies either. So everything you were told about resumes is wrong. You go through college, you go through career planning, you go to the career training, they direct your resume at all the Fortune 500 companies and the quote-unquote real world. We're not the real world, we're the tech world. So, display your skills first. You use some technology to solve some interesting problems. That's what they want to see. They want to see that a general progression from the beginning of time, like, let's say your first job was in Visual Basic. I used Visual Basic 6.0, and then you went on, you used C#.NET to solve some interesting problems, you progressed even further, you did open source, all that over time. If there's a break, you decided to pursue a different career, finance, art, if it doesn't follow your tech line, take that job, throw it at the bottom of your resume. They're not looking at start times and end times. They're looking at a progression of skills. And leave the business stuff out unless you're applying for management. Let's see, I did write some notes. Action. Second thing, in terms of interaction issues, that was one of the questions I posed. What are some of the immediate turnoffs you have when people come and talk to you? They said, we get a lot of arrogant people who think they know everything. Well, let me quote my dad. I would show up at home, hey dad, hey, I got a 90 this semester in my math class. He's like, great son. You didn't learn 10% of what the teacher wanted to teach you, and the teacher isn't teaching you everything about the subject. Congratulations. So, learn to be humble. Some quick hacks and tips that we're talking about, don't use the front door. If they have a job posting site and say, submit your resume here, don't use it. Get on LinkedIn, find the recruiter for the company, and try to initiate that first personal connection first. It negates the whole need of a cover letter. You can just talk to them, you submit the resume, you get in through the back door. Be honest was another one of the things everybody talked about. If you put a skill set on your resume and you say, hey, I know these 5 languages, they better be able to hand you a laptop and say, write me hello world in all 5 languages. If you can't, you don't know it. Know what you want. Some people need structure. If you go join a startup, you're going to do everything. But some people want the structure of moving from developer 1 to developer 2 to architect. Know what you want, don't waste their time, and they won't waste yours. Another thing, one of the salespeople I was talking to was saying, it's hard for me to talk to developers because they just are all introverted. And I'm like, well, how do you fix that? Talk to people all the time. One of the interesting hacks he told me about was like, go to these conferences, grab a cup of coffee, find an empty table with one person sitting on it. That's not really empty, is it? And then say, hey, my name is Joe. What is your name? Practice that over and over again. You start developing simple small talk skills, and you're easier to work with in an interview setting. Last, document what you do today because you won't remember it tomorrow. If you did something quick and simple, write it down, put it in a spiral notebook because you're going to forget to add it to your resume 2 weeks from now. when you're trying to find that new job. Big or small, publish something. Doesn't matter what it is. Do a blog, do open source submittals, do anything. They want to show that you're passionate about something, anything. It doesn't matter. If you like birds and you do like bird watching, do a blog on bird watching. They want passionate people. And remember, when you're in the interview setting, you're evaluating them as much as they're evaluating you. So ask questions. You have to be passionate about the job you're applying for, or you're wasting their time. Thank you very much. I got 22 seconds. I hope this helped. And that is my dog.
Good afternoon. My name is Reid Morrison. I'm the software architect at Clarity Services. What I want to talk to you about this afternoon is a little thing that I've never wanted to deal with in the past myself. How to secure data in our databases and how to encrypt passwords in our configuration files. So I want to show you some of the things we've done in that space. So if we look at what we want to encrypt, we have sensitive data. I'm sure everyone's used active record models. Some of us have even used Mongoid and all the various fields in that. And I showed several other data sources that we have where data is encrypted, that you need to encrypt, ensure it's safe. You can imagine if someone lets the data out. We've seen several of those already, where data is let out of the systems and private information has gotten out there. So in our organization, that's very important. So if we have a look at example, the other one is passwords and configuration files. How many times has the IT operations turned around to you and said, we don't want our database passwords sitting in the clear in those configuration files? So here's a very simple and elegant solution to that problem. So if we want to look at just encryption, how do we encrypt data? So if I open up a Rails console, I can just say symmetric encryption.encrypt with some text in it, and it gives me back straight away the encrypted data. Very simple to use. Decrypt, same thing. Symmetric encryption.decrypt, give it the encrypted string, and bang, it gives me the data straight back to me. So now let's take that to active record. With active record, we will make it a little simpler. For anyone that's familiar with the Attr encrypted gem, drop-in replacement, same thing. Attr encrypted, basically what we do is we just add this in, Attr encrypted in the SSN, along with the encrypted SSN in our database migrations, and now we can assign a social security number in here and obtain out the encrypted value. So in the database, it's only the encrypted value that's stored. And the same thing in Mongoid. So anyone using Mongoid as your mapper into Mongo, very much similar scenario. All you do is at the end, you add encrypted equals true. That field will now become encrypted, and by convention, I just use the encrypted underscore SSN as the field name, and I can do the same thing. I just set the SSN to that number, and retrieve it back, and it's now encrypted. So now in my Mongoid data store, and in my MySQL or Oracle, whatever data store is using, it now contains the encrypted data. Now, the next one. Configuration files, I'm sure you've heard a lot of those. So the only difference we do is instead of sticking the password in the clear directly into the database, we say symmetric encryption.try decrypt and the encrypted string. So you, our operations team, can go off using the rake task that we have, generate a random password, or take a password they have and encrypt it and give it back to you. So you never see the production password. It's entirely under the control of the IT operations team. So why did we do this? We were forced to address several PCI compliance requirements. I mean, we're a small company. We're about 32 people right now in Clarity, and if you're interested in moving to Tampa, Florida, let me know. We're looking. So this is what we needed to do. Also, it's a small company. We had to take the key out of the source code. So all the other solutions we looked at, we had the source either in our source code or in our configuration files. We had this encrypted, the actual key itself. We also need to remove the encryption key from the development team. I don't even have access to our production keys. Some of the other things we had to do, we have to change our encryption keys once every 12 months. And we have to destroy it when we're done. That means we have to migrate all our existing data to the new encryption algorithm with new keys. We can't do it with zero downtime. We have a 24/7, 365 shop. We're up all the time. So I have to be able to encrypt with a new key, decrypt with that new key, and decrypt older data that might be in the database that's being migrated. So hot on the go, we want to do that. And again, we're going to destroy the key when we're done. So I looked at several options. Again, we had Attr encrypted in production, but it didn't meet these particular requirements that we had. I spent ages digging around looking for other alternatives. So we built our own. Now, what I want to show you is you saw how easy it was to encrypt and decrypt data. Now let's have a look at what it does for you. What does symmetric encryption library do for you? We have our existing Rails app, database. Now what we had to do was take that encryption key and move it out of our control, completely out of our control, that IT operations can handle it. We've secured it so that only the Rails app can talk to it. But what we've done, one extra step, is we actually use a 2048-bit RSA key to unlock that file, so we can obtain the contents. So we unlock the file, and we get back an AES 256-bit encryption key that we can now use to encrypt and decrypt data that we read from the database. So all this is what it's doing for you. You don't have to know how to do this. So list of features, I'm sure you can go through those on GitHub. Installation, regular, bundler, regular, and then about. So there it is. Thank you.
Great. How many of you guys use jQuery Live or Delegate? Right? It's pretty cool. You make an event handler and it works on all elements even if they're not on the page yet, right? What if I told you all of your jQuery code, or as much of it as you wanted to, could work that way? It could apply to things that aren't on the page yet. Look up our open source tool, Ninjascript. You can find it on GitHub. I'll put it in the gist for this. It lets you define behavior blocks that have any number of event handlers and a transform, which is an arbitrary bit of code that runs on the matching element. You bind that to CSS selectors. It will run on everything that's on the page now, including binding all the event handlers, and will run the transform on all current and all future matching elements on the page. So it makes all of your AJAX handlers much simpler. That's all.
Hi guys, my name is Jay Moorthi. I work on tddium, a secure hosted parallel continuous integration service. We are up and ready for the public, so if you guys want to check us out, please come by. I was going to talk about some of the tricks that we use to do parallel test execution, but in hearing some of the talks, there we go. In hearing some of the talks at this conference, a number of dots connected in my head, and it seemed like there was something that had not quite yet been said. We've heard about how change is coming, how we're supposed to manage risk, think about risk in the future, and how we're supposed to be prudent. But on the other side of it, Rails is supposed to be all about fun. How do we connect all of these things together? My challenge to you is to think of your automated tests as an extension of your product, where the customer is not your end customer, but the customer is you. And not just you now, but you in the future. You when you're merging a branch, or you when you're working with a coworker or your coworker. You should treat these things as part of your business that allows your business to scale, allows your product to grow, allows you to make change, to manage risk, to think about how it is that you're moving forward, and to do that in a way that is understandable. We heard about introspection and the value of communication through written channels, Campfire, HipChat, documentation. Treat your tests as communication with your future self. So, some examples of interesting things that we found as we've been working with our customers. A lot of people can't actually recreate their development database from scratch. So I challenge you on a system that you've nicely backed up so that you don't lose anything, run rakedb drop and rakedb setup. Because if this doesn't work, the next person you bring in, the next contractor, the next new hire, or yourself, when you're setting up on a new computer, you're going to have to debug something really weird, and somebody is going to be fairly confused. So try this. It's a fairly simple step. You will find a couple of things. The other bit here is you should try this, especially to look for things like scopes with lambdas in them, or scopes that need lambdas, things that you should actually have moved into class methods, et cetera, et cetera. It's a way to keep your development environment as hygienic as you would keep your actual production product. Because the closer you treat your development environment and your test suite to your production product, the happier you'll be. Also, and this is something where we would love to help you, but you don't need to use our product, make your test suite as fast as you can. Use whatever tools you can manage to make it fast, because you want instant feedback. You don't want to be sitting there waiting for a build, because while fun is fun, focus is very important. And losing focus while you are waiting for your test suite to run is just a terrible waste of your time, and it changes the way you think about work. And test every branch. Test your branches before you push. If you're pushing to master or if you're merging commits without a green build, please, please, please change this practice. It will make everybody happier in the long run. So what is this picture? This is the Hindenburg, or the Hindenburg bug, or the hidden bug. Think about what will happen when you're upgrading to Rails 4 and you don't have an integration test suite that you can trust. What will you do? How will it happen? Plan ahead for these changes that we all know are coming, for the changes that occur in every product. And those changes don't become so scary anymore. They become fun. They become easy. They become trustable. That's all. It's everything we support. Come check it out on Twitter or GitHub. Thanks.
All right, every once in a while you get the opportunity to do something really nice for somebody and not have to make a buck for somebody. So this is something that I did one day when I was rebuilding a sad Mac. I had a bunch of friends. They were bloggers that wrote for a site called Cinematical, which is about movies, that was owned by Moviephone, that was owned by AOL, that merged with Huffington Post, who was run by this lady, Arianna Huffington. They bought them for a bunch of money. And they told these bloggers the thing that you were getting paid for, now you can do this for free. Isn't that awesome? Because they're greedy, and now we don't like her anymore. So I was watching Twitter as I was rebuilding my machine, and I had a friend of mine who put out a cry for help. Basically what had happened is he had been writing for Cinematical for years, and he hadn't saved a single blog post that he had written. He's like, does anybody know how I can automatically scrape a bunch of crap off of a website so I don't have to go download 300 articles manually? I said, hey dude, it's me, I'm Rod Paddock, I solve problems. So I busted out Nokogiri, and in 26 lines of code, I basically hacked through every single page that he had written a blog post on, and I dumped them all to a file. I did this in about 15 minutes, and what happened is this array started with one guy, and then he said, that was really quick. If I asked anybody else that wrote for this website, because they were all equally screwed, can you do this for them as well? I said, sure. So I appended, actually it was a single name, and then I just created an array, and I looped through all the names, and I created a bunch of files. So basically, some of these people had written literally 1 million words of articles. Some of them had 500 pages worth of blog posts. And the nice thing is that Ruby, with these tools, and with the people that built Nokogiri, big hugs to them, I was able to basically save all these people's years worth of work without them having to manually scrape, which some of them would have taken a year to go through and grab each page. So what happened? Well, they all went to work for this company called Fandango, and now they're writing for a site called movies.com, and they're all really happy now, and they all lived happily ever after. So this is the beautiful thing that you can do with Ruby and Nokogiri to actually help make people's lives better. And I didn't have a copyright issue because they wrote the material and we didn't distribute it. I wrote an article. Thank you.
So I am Richard Schneeman. I go by Schneems on the internet. I work for Heroku. And this is Wizards from WTF to Wicked. So step-by-step wizards, love them or hate them, they are like freaking everywhere on the internet. It's just kind of a fact. If you don't know what a step-by-step wizard is, well, like step, 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 and then, at the end. So you're done. At one point in time, I was working for Gowalla, and I wrote a step-by-step wizard that was a RESTful state machine inside of a Rails controller. So like WTF, like that was way too many lines of code, pretty incomprehensible. I was doing a bunch of really, really gross stuff. So I thought, what if everything you ever wanted about step-by-step wizards came in a Ruby gem. So I am introducing Wicked, Rocket Edition. You include Wicked Wizard, and that's pretty much it. You set your steps. You just define what you want your steps to be. You then add views. The steps are named the same as your view, so if you reorder the steps, it doesn't matter. It still calls the same view. And then you just call render wizard. It's pretty simple. Here's an example show, like the simplest show you could possibly go to. Inside your view, you get next step, you get previous step. You can access and see how many steps total there are, so you can do that cool like 1 out of 3, which is, yeah, I never look at that. If you pass an object to render wizard, if that object responds to save, if it saves, it'll go to the next step. If not, it'll render the current step. So basically, we do kind of this validation thing for you. It's pretty sweet. This is an example of a controller wizard. And at the end of the day, it's just a RESTful state machine. It's not doing anything that you couldn't do inside of a controller by yourself. But it's less gross than the other stuff that you saw before. So yeah, use Wicked. My name is Schneeman, and clap now.
Okay, I'm going to talk about a gem I wrote. It's called Flash S3 Rails. I'm Sam Woodard. I'm a senior developer at Wildfire Interactive. So what's the problem I was trying to solve? Direct upload to S3, so we don't have to tie up the Rails process with an upload and then re-upload via the S3 API. Multi-file upload, easy usage, progress bars are neat. These are just some URLs I'm going to go to. So how does it work, or what does it look like? Right now, it's just this green box down here. Click Browse, pick a couple files. Start. Hopefully the Wi-Fi will cooperate. All right, if not, then I'll just go into talking about the gem for a sec. So real simple to use. Configuration is just a bucket name, access key, secret access key. You can put this in your application RB, your development RB, production RB, or an initializer. Obviously, if you're going to put it in an initializer, you'll need to do rails.application.config. It's just a simple column in your migration. You have the name of the upload. In this case, it's media, and I'm putting it on the videos table. So in my model, I'm going to say has attached S3 file media, just like that. Then I'm going to have some includes in my application.js. Right now, it's dependent on jQuery UI for the progress bars. First thing to do that I have in my upcoming, or one of them, is to take that out and just do a simple CSS JavaScript implementation, because it's a pretty big dependency, but it's just beta right now. And then the require in my CSS file. Obviously, the CSS is not a jQuery plugin, but I thought it was kind of nice to have the symmetry. In the view, just the Flash S3 uploader, and then the name or the instance of the object that you have the upload on, and then a post-upload callback URL. Note, you have to use the URL and not a path. And then in your controller, in the post-callback action, just take the params of whatever the name of the model that you have was, stick it into a new, or create or update attributes, whatever you'd like, save it, and automagically the S3 key will be saved on your object, on your instance. So I don't know why this is going to be a Wi-Fi problem. I've got 50 seconds, so I'm going to reload and see if I can't do this again. Yay, progress bar. Refresh the database. media S3 key on my video job, and that's it. Let's see, I think I have. So GitHub sh Woodard /S3 Rails. It's on RubyGems now. My Twitter is Sam H. Woodard. And sorry for the plug, but we're hiring.
My name is Charles Lowell. I'm actually going to spend my 5 minutes to relate to you guys a very personal story. It's actually a true story, 100%. A couple weeks ago, I was driving along in the car with my wife. The kids were asleep in the back, and kind of a moment of self-reflection, I said to my wife, I said, "Baby, would you say that I am one man in the name of love?" And you know what she did? She turned to me and she looked right at me and she said, "Charles, what the hell are you talking about?" It's a true story. So I said, okay, in the name of love, we have to narrow the scope a little bit. So I said, okay, baby, would you say that I am one man in the name of embedding JavaScript into Ruby? And she said, I have no idea what you're talking about. But the answer was clear. I was thinking, if the shoe fits, I'll wear it. You know, I've developed a couple of gems. You may have heard of them. They're the Ruby Racer, the Ruby Rhino. It allows you to embed JavaScript into Ruby. And the reason I did this is because having a real JavaScript environment where you can share data structures and you can send messages back and forth between JavaScript and Ruby, it pretty much rules. There's a lot of really good reasons for doing it. I'm not going to try and convince anyone here, but you know, for example, it's the only way that I really know to safely evaluate Ruby code. You can share code between your client and server, but not for bad reasons like with models, but just because some libraries are really useful, like handlebars or less. And you can use it to just tap into what's going on in the JS community. There's all these great utilities, and you can just get your hands right on them. But I'm here today because I don't want to be one man in the name of JavaScript. I want to open up this process to everybody, and not just because there's a big laundry list of things to do. There's all kinds of bugs. We need to support Rubinius. There's memory issues and things like this, but because I think it's actually important for us as a development environment. This is the way that applications are going to be developed in the future. I think that every serious language will have JavaScript interop just out of the box, and it's time to start thinking about what exactly that looks like. You know, Java has had something like this for 5 years, and it's really awesome. It just ships with the AVM, and it's right there. So we need to start asking questions like, what should it look like? What should these interfaces look like to call JavaScript from Ruby code? What should it look like to call Ruby from JavaScript? You know, there's a whole lot of what does a prototype chain even look like as represented by Ruby classes and modules. Right now, it's just, I've been kind of making these decisions in the echo chamber of my own head, but I've started a list to try and discuss this and other issues, and I'm just inviting everybody here to join in on this discussion. And lest you fear that there aren't actual real concrete results, just since I started this list, someone from the Czech Republic actually stepped up. We did some work to get some better interface parity between the Ruby Rhino and the Ruby Racer. And just yesterday evening, we were able to get support for less.js on JRuby, which means we now have support for less Rails on JRuby, which means you can use Twitter Bootstrap and JRuby on Rails. So already things are happening for great good. So please join the list, join the conversation, and that's it.
So my name is Matt Rogish. I'm here to talk to you about nothing related to programming at all, and actually related to how to sit in the front of the airplane instead of the terrible, horrible place in the back. So this is not a talk about hacking the airlines like this. This is really talking about hacking a system that is designed for people like this. A system to get business folks who hate traveling. I used to get on an airplane 6 o'clock Monday morning, come home Friday evening, or sometimes Saturday morning, and do that for 6 months straight, every single week. It was really sucky, but you learn a little bit about how to work the system. and so that you can be this guy. And I want to share that knowledge to you too, because I'm kind of an open source guy and I like to present this type of stuff as well, because there's this thing in the community where if everybody knew it, then we wouldn't be able to do it anymore, and I think that's bullshit. It's true though, like this system will only work up to a certain point. Like once people figure out, and everyone does it, then the airlines are gonna have to figure out what to do. But for now, let's play around with it, because everybody wants to sit up here in this place, in this Shangri-La on an airplane, and nobody wants to sit back here in the back, which is where I used to sit before I figured all this stuff. And why don't people sit in the front? Because it's incredibly expensive. Like this is a flight from New York to Austin, and I paid somewhere around this $340 here. But that same flight in the front of the plane is anywhere from $1,000 to about $2,000, which really sucks. But that's not the only currency that airlines take. Airlines take something called air miles, which you've probably heard of, which means every time you get on a plane and you go from point A to point B, you accrue funny money in terms of airline miles. Now, what I found out is it's not a one-to-one relationship between getting an air mile and then redeeming them again. Most tickets start at around 25,000 miles or up, so it takes a little while. So this is me sitting on an transatlantic flight, which I paid $12 for in international business because I had a whole bunch of miles. And the other currency that airlines have is something called elite status. So the higher you are in this little club, the more miles you fly, the more you level up, the more you can kind of sit in the front. And I love Fallout, so I had to put this in here somewhere. So here I've already been upgraded on my flights back to New York tomorrow, so it works. So step one, pick an airline. You are essentially wedded to this airline. You will fly it no matter what. It doesn't matter if it's twice as expensive as the nearest one, because the miles are incredibly important to you. Both the status miles, which are miles that count up towards you leveling up, and then the redeemable miles, which you can use to pay for additional flights. You also can earn them on partner airlines. I'm on Delta. I can fly in Alaska, credit my miles to Delta. So when you pick an airline, take a look at their partners as well. Number two, fly a lot to random places for a day. So this is called mileage running, where the point is not to go somewhere and stay there. The point is to get there as cheaply as possible and come back the same day. So there's a website called flyertalk.com, which has a mile run forum, which shows you something called CPM, cents per mile. You want to get cents paid per redeemable mile earned as cheaply as possible so that you can then redeem it. There's another place called milepoint.com has something similar too. Number three, take the long way. Instead of going direct from JFK to SFO, take 4 stops. Do that on the back too. The site called ITA Software's Matrix, which was purchased by Google, allows you to do this. It may be a little bit more expensive, but it's going to drop your CPM, you're going to get more segments, and you might get the holy grail of a voluntary denied boarding or involuntary denied boarding, otherwise known as a bump. What a bump does is an airline pays you to take a different flight because it's overbooked. The more you fly, the more things you get, and then you can redeem them for trips to anywhere you want. So I went to Dubai for free because I had $2,000 worth of these little redemption things that I could do. That, of course, is an infinite CPM, which is pretty awesome. So the fifth one is churn and burn. Credit cards are given out like candy, and you get certain amounts of bulk miles as soon as you sign up. So if you don't care about your credit score, you can earn hundreds of thousands of miles with a weekend's worth of work, and you cancel them and you move on. Number 6, finally, earn them and burn them. This is a depreciable asset. These don't earn interest. They sit in your account, and as inflation continues to climb up, your value goes down. So as soon as you earn them, take that vacation flight to somewhere with your friends or your family or your spouse, significant other, or whatever, and have a great time. Thank you.
Is anyone here a fan of personal happiness? See? So my presentation is ridiculous and selfish. So thank you very much. So it's really important that when there's a great demand for a certain job position, I don't know, like software developer, that you should probably take advantage of it and leverage that as the opportunity of your lifetime to do what you want to do, the way you want to do it. You know, sprinkle some sugar on that. It's basically the idea that whatever we want to do, we can do it right now based on the economy of software engineers, and you should. Oh, somebody told me earlier I should introduce myself. I'm Brad Wilkening, co-founder of DevMind Software. We're a software services company. We try to do the right thing for the right reason, but in consulting, sometimes you do the right thing for the wrong reason occasionally. Sure, nobody's familiar with writing bad code occasionally because it caters. So this is a ridiculous slide. It's the cat. Nyan cat. So you write software for a living, you're good at it, you're not a douchebag. So we should make the assumption that you should be able to get any job you want, as long as you're as cool as I assume you are by this slide. This is a random photo of DHH. Let's assume at some point that you are in fact underpaid. It's very likely that you could make more money. You know, money isn't everything, but at some point you have to be able to afford a sailboat. This is a random slide that involves a photo from the whiteboard outside. If you travel too far to get to your job, then that sounds like a great improvement opportunity for your lifestyle. I have a baby at home. Does anybody here have a baby? Babies are really cool, and when you have them, typically you want to spend a lot of time with them. I'm not sure if it's like psychological or not, but clearly I want to spend a lot of time with my baby. So the longer the commute, the less time I get to hang out with my kid. This is a slide of side effects of Ambien, which includes the sleepwalking woman that has sex with strangers. I actually emailed the person that authored this and asked for her location. That didn't work. That didn't work out. If you don't have enough vacation, then it's very important that other than your commute, you focus on the fact that 2 months off is totally typical in the grand scheme of Europe. In the United States, 4 weeks is pretty prototypical. So why don't we look out for that as something that we can do for ourselves in order to bring the catharsis that can actually make us think better when we are at work. This is Tender Loves Cat. It's really easy to get a job these days. If I were out there and trying to find a job, it would be very likely that I'd probably find one in about an hour. It's kind of, you know, an estimation, but it's about right. This is a photograph of an advertisement I found in a Target that looks so ridiculous I had to take a photo out of it. I'm not sure if anybody noticed this theme, but I have every other slide is ridiculous. If you're at a company that makes you work a lot of overtime, you really have to consider about whether or not that was really like a commitment you made to do something or whether or not they're just kind of torturing you. If they're torturing you, then maybe it's time to look for a different job where they don't happen to do that. I know that after 8 hours of coding, I'm pretty crappy at it. So keeping me around is probably a bad decision on their part, much less mine. This is also a ridiculous photo of some drawings that were made by someone that helped us with a conference one time. It's vegetables that play sports. I like working with people that are better than me. That's just kind of a hobby that I have, where at some point I need to make sure that somebody around me just blows me away every day. It makes me feel alive. It makes me move forward. Being better at what I do is super cool, and I enjoy it thoroughly. This is a picture of my progeny. That is my child. It's also ridiculous. Changing jobs also includes changing what job. That was, in fact, my last 11 seconds, by the way, your applause, but I appreciate it. My name is Brad. I'm from DevMind. Thank you very much.
Hi, everyone. My name is Matt Conway. I'm the CTO of Backupify. We back up your SaaS data. I'm also a bit of a DevOps geek. Got a bunch of stuff on my GitHub profile. If you've used the Rubber project, which not very many people have, you probably know who I am. So here to talk to you today about Graphite. Graphite's a piece of software that really impressed me. It does scalable real-time graphing. And what that means is it has this whole architecture for collecting data and then giving you a way to, in an ad hoc fashion, graph that data. So it doesn't actually do the data collection. You use something else, whatever you like. I use CollectD. You push that data into Graphite, and then you use Graphite to build your dashboards, your graphs. It has a web app that comes with it that does a whole bunch of stuff. But one of the most powerful things is all the data it has is exported as JSON as well. So there is a whole slew of other apps. How do they compete with that? Whole slew of other apps that also give you alternate views of that data. Coming from Munin, Munin started falling over pretty hard for us at about 10 servers. Graphite have no problems with it at all, and we collect at a much higher rate. We collect every 60 seconds. It's way easier to build the graphs, and say it again, the ad hoc graphing is really killer. It's just like doing an ad hoc query in SQL. As I said, we use collected. If you want to write a custom plugin, it's fairly straightforward. Basically, just do a puts to standard out, and collected will then send it to whatever you want. Also planning to use statsd for in-app collection and forward that data on as well. So, if you wanted to see the recipes I used to set it up, you can check out Rubber. I have them all in there. If you used Rubber, you'd get Graphite for free, kind of. And with that, let me show you a demo of the Graphite web UI. So go there. That's kind of what Rubber gives you by default. Graphite comes up. This is the composer. Kind of lets you drill down into all your stats. This is actually my production data, so don't tell anybody. You know, you can go down. Most of these things collects by default. You can add multiple things to the graph. So if you want to see why your load is spiking, you can add it. In this case, it kind of blows away the scale. So I'm going in here and just saying, hey, put this on another axis so that I can see the scales independent of each other, which is real nice. You can kind of see that it adjusted it in the background there. Let me add CPU as well. CPU isn't very useful because it's just monotonically increasing. But because we're using Graphite, you can say, well, this kind of data, I want to see deltas. So let me go ahead and do a derivative of it. And then you can see now you have sort of the rate of change of that statistic. Now, that's just kind of the composer. It's not very useful by itself. But there's also this dashboard UI. Well, I'll get to that in a second, I guess. You can also change the time frame that, of all of the data. Drill down to minutes, hours, days, week. I have mine set up to collect on a 13-month interval. There's an RRD, so it rotates data out after 13 months. So this is the dashboard UI. Similar sort of thing. You can drill down and add various things. You can go in there. You can say, all right, I want to see the load for all my app servers. You just got it. I can then say, all right, I don't want them all independently because I have 50 servers. Let me see the average. And then you can also save your dashboards. These are some of ours. This is our worker utilization. Yes, we are running 2,000, or almost 1,000 rescue workers. We have peaked at 10,000 simultaneous rescue workers. Didn't really have a problem with it. So if you need to scale that much, you can. And I think I'm about out of time.
You're a champ. Thank you very much. If anyone's lost a child.
Oh, I think it's yours.
I'm giving one away. It's a raffle. All right, you're all invited. Thank you very much for all the speakers, and which you will applaud them in a second. But first, a message to them. Please put your slides up on that internet thing that we're all here for, and then link them in the gist, and then at least they're all in one place. Now I'd like to hand back over to Charlie.
Thanks, Charlie.
All right, not Charlie. All right, back to Evan, and thank you very much for the session.
You guys win a prize. You're the last ones still here. All the sessions have been out for a while. It's actually sort of a ghost town out there. When you go out there, you'll find out. But that's great. Thank you, everybody, for coming. I have one quick question. Is anybody from Yammer still here? Okay, come up here when we're done. You're not in trouble or anything. In fact, it's a good thing. Thanks for coming. I'll see you in 2013.